Voodoo. Voodoo, in my frame of reference, is when someone calls upon a spirit through ritual to enter their body in order to create harm to someone or something. The use of tools such as drums, rattles, and voodoo dolls are just some examples, and sometimes animal sacrifice is used to call upon the spirits to come in and possess the person doing the voodoo. Once the ritual is over and the dark spirit has left the person doing the voodoo, that spirit usually then goes to help create more chaos for the receiver, or can be sent to go and possess the receiver. So when it comes to voodoo, the difference with this particular form of dark arts is the person doing the voodoo is actually calling on negative spirits to come and enter them. So they're actually doing the ritual in order to have a possession. And when that person has been possessed by a dark spirit, then the intention of the person can be carried out even stronger. A lot of the time in situations where voodoo is involved, animal sacrifice or blood sacrifice is used, and sometimes the use of voodoo dolls, but especially things like rattles and other tools in order to help call the dark spirit in to possess the person doing the voodoo. Now, if you're the receiver of this energy, like I said, once the possession has entered the person doing the voodoo and the intention has been set, or the voodoo has been cast upon the person, then at the end, that dark spirit sometimes will actually go to the receiver and try and possess the receiver as well. The attaching mechanism. So once again, the attaching mechanism is a weak energy field as well as a non-coherent brain that allows this energy through. So I'm not sure if anything is going to stop or block these types of energies except for becoming fully coherent in our brain and energy bodies. So this is the work. We are being forced to clean up our energy bodies. We are being forced to clean up our minds and our emotions and to become masters of our minds, masters of our emotions, so we can finally become masters of our energy body in order to stop and block any of these types of energies from affecting us. To fully master our entire energy grid, that's a massive feat, because most people, like I've said many times, most people can't even feel their energy body even slightly off their physical body. So in order to feel all of their whole multidimensional selves is a really big ask, and that's why we're in this process we're in right now. It's going to take some time for us to learn to master our minds and emotions before we can truly master our energy bodies. And that's the point where we no longer can be affected from these types of energies. The results in a person. This energy is extreme and can have a very devastating effect on someone very, very quickly. It'd be very rare to find someone affected by voodoo who doesn't feel the effects of this type of dark art in their life. And it has been said from many cultures around the world that this type of energy can also cause death. I have heard some really intense stories of people affected from voodoo, especially ones who have had voodoo dolls used in order to cause them harm. Some people are actually able to feel the pain of the needles being poked into the doll, or the sensation of being cut while having a vision of the doll that's being used to harm them. It seems to be quite common for the receiver to also see the tools being used in the process. So over 10 years of working with clients from all around the world, voodoo is not one of the ones that come up like super regularly, but it comes up enough to definitely, need to know about it, because you will come across it at one point if you're doing clearings for people. So the stories that I've heard from people who have been affected from voodoo has really been quite intense. I haven't come across a mild case of voodoo. It's usually always really intense. And like I said, 9 times out of 10, the person can actually feel what's going on or have a vision of the tools being used in order to harm them. So voodoo is not something that will scan up on someone who's feeling great and having a great life, and then, then you find voodoo. Voodoo will only show up in someone who actually does feel the effects of it. There's no way for someone to be affected from voodoo and not feel the effects. So this is not something that will, hide in a person's energy body. So a lot of the times, some of the other energies can be affecting someone and they're not really able to feel the effects because their energy body is unharmonic to start with. But this energy is definitely not one of those. This energy will have an impact on the person. They will feel the effects. There's no way they won't. They will feel like something really intense is going on. They'll feel the darkness, and they will definitely feel that something is definitely not right. If the spirit being called upon is sent to possess the receiver, then it will scan up in your reading as voodoo and also possession, that we're about to talk about in another video. So if you do have voodoo scan up in a clearing, then later on in the questions, you'll also be asking if there's a possession as well. So if the person doing the voodoo has also sent the possession, the spirit that they called upon, to go and affect the receiver, and if the receiver has actually taken on that spirit and become possessed, then you'll find that voodoo will scan up and possession will scan up. So if you end up with voodoo and possession scanning up, possession's actually not a hugely common thing, but if you have voodoo scan up and a possession, you can be almost guaranteed that that's got a link and that there will be a correlation between the possession and the voodoo. Now, like I said, this is not a super common energy that I find, but sometimes when working with clients in South Africa or the Caribbean, I've come across this energy, and it's the reason that most people contact me. They already knew what was going on and were looking for someone to help. So depending where you live and where your clients live will depend on how often you come across this energy in your work. So like I said, I have done readings and clearings for people in South Africa and even the Caribbean where I actually have found voodoo. But like I said, these people have actually sought me out because they knew what was going on. It wasn't like they were just like, oh, I'm going to go and get a soul reading and clearing, or I'm going to go and contact this person for some hands-on healing. They've actually sought me out in order to deal with what was going on. So they knew what was going on. Now, they might not have actually been able to pinpoint it as voodoo, although some of them did, but some of them just knew something extremely dark was going on for them. Lifespan. So voodoo can be a present life or a past life issue, but cannot hide. So this energy is something you can find in this lifetime, and you can also find it from a past life. So if somebody had voodoo placed on them in a past life, then they can still carry the effects of that in this life. It's very, very rare to find someone with voodoo from a past life. If you do, their life in this lifetime would have been really hard, like really extremely hard. Their story in this lifetime will be a lot of trauma, a lot of, traumatic events, a lot of heartache, a lot of heartbreak, a lot of struggle financially, and all sorts of stuff. So you won't find voodoo placed on someone in a past life with a client who has quite a good life in this lifetime. It just wouldn't happen. If you have voodoo placed on you in a past life and you reincarnate into this lifetime, you would not have an easy life. That energy is extremely intense, it's extremely dark, it's extremely twisted. So you definitely would not find someone having a normal, happy life with a voodoo from a past life placed on them. It would have to match up with the life story of the person, which means a really hard, really full-on trauma kind of packed life. But like I said, this energy cannot hide, so you will always find it.